Welcome to Trust Your Inner Sense with Joanne Starkman podcast. I'm Joanne Starkman, and I look forward to going on this collaborative journey with you to ignite inspiration, inspire self-discovery, and instill new meaning in life. I'm excited to host a wonderful array of guests, including innovators, creatives, expert coaches, teachers, and much, much more who come together to share their stories. Each episode reveals how they've embraced their inner sense to pursue their passions and shine their unique lights in the world. We'll have thought-provoking discussions and chat about tools that will provide fresh perspectives to help you create a joyful and meaningful life. As founder and chief visionary officer of award-winning haircare brand Inner Sense Organic Beauty, I am also an avid meditator, platform artist, author, and mother of a special needs young adult. Over 20 years ago, I intentionally brought mindfulness to morning routines by authoring each affirmation on Inner Sense Organic Beauty's products, which we call Innerflections. You can check them out on the back of the bottle. It's my goal to have this podcast to be your warm and compassionate companion, whether you're on a journey for deeper meaning, seeking greater joy, or in need of love and healing. Let's continue our journey of self-discovery, self-care, and self-love. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive into this week's Trust Your Inner Sense episode now. Welcome, friends. I'm so excited that you're here. I'm super excited for this conversation. You guys are going to get so inspired. And this is somebody that I met in person not that long ago. We'll talk about that, but this has been a friend of Inner Sense for a long, long time. And I would like to welcome Gabriella Strano, and better known as the Curl Maven, which I absolutely love that name, Gabriella. It's just such an incredible name, and you inspire so many people. And I just wanted for you to introduce yourself first off and tell me a little bit about the Curl Maven. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you so much. I have been such a user and a lover and a fan of the brand for so many years. And I loved that we got to meet in person a few months ago. It felt like seeing an old friend, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
And we
It
were
sure
like just
did.
chatting away for what it felt at the time like hours. And then afterwards, it felt like it went by so quickly. So, as Joanne very kindly introduced me, my name is Gabriella Strano. I used to be known as Curly Colleen way back in the day. And then I did a huge rebrand to the Curl Maven. I wanted something that really summed up what I was about and what I do and who I am. And I had this really big pushback back in the day because I'm a dinosaur when it comes to content creation, which is a huge part of what I do. And I had this real pushback of, I'm not an influencer, I'm an expert. There is a difference. And the rebrand to Curl Maven was part of that. And the meaning of Maven is somebody that knows everything that there is to know in their field, in their niche, and is a real expert, and an expert through experience. And I was like, oh, that's it. That's perfect. So I rebranded to Curl Maven in 2021. I'd already been going for a few years at that point, and now obviously it's 2025. And I am lots of things. I am a content creator. I'm a consultant. I am one of the world's leading experts in the most, in my eyes, misunderstood hair type, which is wavy and curly hair, especially on the finer side. I'm also a designer maker, a holistic kind of hair care and wellness passionate person. I don't like the word guru, but I'm very passionate about, a holistic approach to our hair care and our wellness. And
Yes, you are.
also an
Definitely. I
educator.
I
Yeah.
love that. One of the things that I love is that you're a strong advocate for simplifying curl care, especially in a world where there's just so much noise. There's so much benefit to the simplification of it. How do you feel like people can become attuned to their own hair care needs? And maybe could you talk a little bit about, your approach?
Yeah. I think people overcomplicate things because they think that it needs to be complicated. And in order to achieve results that you have to have, a multiple step routine with several products and techniques and tools and accessories and elements. And my whole thing is I am very results driven and I am
Mm.
very solutions oriented. And I also like to package that all together in a holistic approach. And the thing is, everybody wants results and they want solutions to things that they are struggling with. And for most people, for everybody, that needs to come from consistency. And for most people to be consistent enough to see results, it has to be simple. Otherwise, they're not going to be consistent with it. So if I can break things down into something that's super simple and really easy to implement into their routine with a holistic approach, they're way more likely to follow that advice and be consistent with it. And therefore, in that simplicity, get the results that they want, because
Mhm.
that is what it is. I don't know anybody that said, I have clients from all over the world. I've got like 11 million readers on my website and thousands of clients, that I do online. And no one has ever said to me, I want like 12 product step routine and I want to wash my hair as minimal amount of time as possible. In fact, I want to go ages between washing my hair, but I also want all of these things. That's not what clients want. They want, to achieve a certain thing, for it to fit into their lifestyle, to not dominate their life. They want to feel comfortable and confident in who they are, and they want it to be simple and they want it to be easy. And thankfully, those things are achievable, and that is kind of what I specialize in. But in terms of like what to do or where to start, I actually think if you blank out all of the noise of marketing and PR firms and social media engines and algorithms, and you just go back to like, what makes sense, or what did I do that used to work really well that then I started doubting myself on?
Mm.
Oftentimes that knowledge and that wisdom is already there. You just thought somebody else's opinion mattered more. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that. I love the other thing that you mentioned was confidence. And
Mm.
that makes me think about like, the deep emotional layer there is to embracing, texture. And how do you see self-acceptance showing up in the process? And how do you hold space through people's transformation?
For me, our hair is one of the biggest parts of our identity. It's
Mhm.
who we are, it's who we are recognized as. And when you lose that, whether it's through health, hormones, or hair care mistakes, or damage, or
Mhm.
medication, all that kind of thing, you instantly lose a part of yourself. And that was a part of my story. It was I no longer recognized who was staring back at me in the mirror. And with that, I couldn't identify with who that person was anymore. And I know that it's so huge for so many people, and they want to get a piece of themselves back and their identity back and claim that back. And in a way that, like, with age and experience, you don't just want to claim it back. You can't, like, I want to be confident about it. I want to be proud of, this is me and this is who I am and this is what I look like, and, not trying to conform. So it was a huge part of my journey. And I think that's what's resonated with so many other people's journey is,
Mm.
your hair is so tied up in your identity. And if you look at it from the other side, if someone, whether it's sports people and they've like had a run of bad games and they want to like shake it off in some way, or whether it's someone that, just emerged out of a divorce, or they've got a new job, or they're just, entering into motherhood, the first thing they do is change their hair. It's the quickest way to completely change and give yourself a new identity or a new boost of confidence or something to like shake it off, which is why sports people are so well known for like just having a complete like shaving their hair off or dyeing it or bleaching it or what have you. And I was really
Absolutely.
fascinated by that, and by what if we reversed it and kind of peeled back the layers to rediscover our identity and rediscover who we were underneath all of the marketing and the algorithms and the latest product that's going to do this, that, and the other for you.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that. I want to get into all the tips and tricks and nuggets because you have so much. I mean, I'm in the presence of the maven here. Do you mind getting into your story just a little bit about what brought you
Yeah.
to, yeah, because you mentioned your story, and I think that would be a very interesting, I'm sure there are people that could resonate.
For sure. So my parents weren't together. I was the product of a second date that went no further. And I got my dad's Italian, Sicilian, curly, thick, as in I have a lot of hair. But I didn't grow up in that culture. I grew up, in Ireland and England with my mom's side of the family that just no one looked like me. No one had hair like me. Nobody understood what to do with my hair. For most of my childhood, I look like, some orphan child that's had their hair hacked off because it was just not understood. And I remember, my auntie bringing me to Brixton in London, which now is super gentrified, but back in the 80s and the 90s, like we were the only white people there. And she used to march me into the local Afro-Caribbean shop and be like, what do we do with this child's hair? Because we don't know. And all of the aunties were like taking me in and like giving me like very much Afro hair products, the pink lotion. That's what I used for years. And I just didn't know what to do. And it was such a thing of shame around my hair. And I looked so different and I stuck out like a sore thumb in so many ways. So I tried to conform by damaging my hair to make it look like everybody else's. And then fast forward a few years, and I have two kids. I have a son and a daughter. And my daughter came into my bedroom with like the most stunning ringlets and curls you've ever seen. Perfectly, like you could never achieve the highlights and the balayage that she's got naturally in her gorgeous curls. And she came in and she was only about 5 at the time, and she saw me straightening my hair. And she says, "Oh, mommy, you make my hair look like you." And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "You do that to my hair, so I look like you." And I was like, "Oh, baby, you would look like me if I hadn't, damaged and ruined my hair so much." And I realized that my daughter no longer recognized herself in me and she came from me. And so it was that thing of she then wanted to change and adjust and conform to try and fit in, which in her small circle was me as her mom. And I was like, oh boy, I've got this so wrong. Like, and I put down the straighteners on that very day. It was actually this time, several years ago. It was May 17th.
Oh,
And
wow.
I dived in and I was like, how can I get my waves and curls back? And how can I, raise my daughter in all the ways that I wasn't, and to love and embrace and be proud of her hair. So I did that for a while, and that was my journey. And I'm like on my healthy hair journey, trying to get my curls back. And then it came to my son. So I started this journey because of my daughter, and I turned it into a business because of my son. I recognized that my son definitely had what I now know is AuDHD, which is autism and ADHD. And, like everywhere in the world, the waiting lists are ridiculously long to get, children any help for this. And it was like I needed to get him the help that he needed. And I needed to get him therapy and occupational therapy and assessments and diagnosis and the support that he so desperately needed. And I couldn't wait any longer. So I was like, I've got to turn all of this passion and all of this like following that I was building. I was like, I need to turn it into a business because I need to provide for my son. I need to give him the support that he needs. And that set me on a journey to getting him diagnosed, which then turned into me being diagnosed, which then turned into my daughter being diagnosed. It's been a whole thing. And it came from that of like, how can I turn what I have and what I have created and built and this journey that seems to be resonating with so many people when there just weren't a lot of content creators and educators in the curly hair space, especially not fine hair. There was either the like super loose waves or the really tight afro coils. There wasn't really anybody in between. And I just slotted in there. And I also have a unique understanding of what I now know is a very typical European hair type, which is fine hair, but a lot of it and a wavy and curly hair pattern. And that just exploded me because so many people in the States have that heritage. And obviously there's Europe and then there's Australia and New Zealand, which also share that heritage. And it just blew up from there.
Amazing. Yeah, that's incredible. I love that just brought the kids into this. And I wasn't planning on asking this question, but I'm just curious, my story with Morgan and just wondering, as a mom, did you recognize maybe that there was something going on with your son at what point? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think there's a lot of parents that go through this. And it's just interesting to me that you say that it kind of then opened up your eyes to yourself and to your daughter. And I
Mm.
would love to hear a little bit more about that. I think that would be something that my listeners would really be interested in hearing.
Yeah, and your story with Morgan was what resonated with me so much when I was first discovering the brand, because, sometimes I think there's a tendency with some brands to kind of be from the neck up, that, it's like, no, we're like a
Mm.
brand, and you will only
Mhm.
know about our brand values and our, core pillars. And to see
Right.
someone talk so openly about, like, no, my child was a huge part of why this brand is even here, and it's
Mhm.
part of our story, it really allowed me to kind of explore that with my own. So with my son, I definitely noticed things when he was a baby. I was like, he had a lot of sensory issues, and
And
as he
he's your
was
second born,
no, he's my
or he's
first.
your first. Okay, so
He's
then
my
that makes
first.
it a little bit more challenging when it's your first, because
Yeah,
at least it did for me. You don't know what you don't know at that time.
exactly. And then ironically, and it is even more ironic that it took me so nearly 40 years to figure it out, but he came out and he was just like me. And, he had all these little quirks and these little sensory things and all these things that he didn't like, and lining things up and liking things all a certain way.
Mhm.
And I don't know, this is my first child. Did children not come out and be like their parents? So I just figured this must be normal. He's just like me, I guess.
Of course.
And then I remember getting pregnant with my second child. And I remember saying to my son, Donica, I was like, oh my goodness, Donica, what are we going to do if she comes out and she's like not like us and she doesn't like things all perfectly like arranged and routine? And we joked about it. And that is exactly what happened. And then my daughter arrived, and the things that were like setting me and Donica like off a cliff edge just didn't seem to bother her in the slightest. And wasn't until I had my second, I don't know if this was the same with you, but it wasn't until I had my second that I realized, boy, there's some stuff going on with the first one that I just didn't know, because
Mm.
this was like one for one. How am I supposed to know?
Exactly.
And then I was trying to get him help, and there was a lot of pushback. It got essentially, my parenting was called into question, and that well, you have mental health issues, and well, you're a single
Mm.
mom, and so you're just struggling, and you don't know what you're talking about because you're
Ugh,
just like, you've got too many things going on. And I
how
was,
painful.
it was really hard. And I'm quite good at communicating and advocating for myself, and to the point where people think that, well, there can't be anything wrong because look at how much you're able to communicate and advocate. So, no, 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 no. So I struggled for a long time to get him the help that he needed and the support that he needed. And then eventually it was the GP. I took him to the doctors. I was like, he's really struggling and I'm doing everything I can. And I knew that he had autism, or back then in that language, I was like, I think this is Asperger's. So I already had so many supports in place. And, the GP was like, I think ADHD might be in here as well. I'm going to refer you to that. And then just as luck would have it, this time around, I was like, I am not waiting for people to tell me that I'm a bad parent and all of those kind of things and waiting lists. So I'm going to go private. And it just so happened that one of the best people in the country lives literally 4 minutes from my doorstep. And I rang, and it turns out our kids go to the same school together. I was like, wait, I know you. We've definitely seen
Oh
each
my
other.
goodness.
And then I
What a
said,
blessing.
yeah, right. And I was like, listen, I'm self-employed. I live 10 minutes down the road, less. I live 4 minutes down the road. I'm super flexible. If a cancellation comes up, I will take it immediately. She rang me back less than 24 hours later. And then less than 24 hours after that, Donica was in being seen straight away. And I felt so blessed and fortunate that, because a lot of people say, you work so hard and oh my goodness, and what's it for? And I'm like, this is what it's for. That when my
Mm.
son needed the help and the support, and when I was able to, find opportunities and alignments of like, what are the odds, that I was
Mhm.
in a position to be able to say, yes, in less than 24 hours, I will take that opportunity and I will pay thousands for a private assessment and diagnosis and, jump straight on that. And I felt hugely fortunate that like, this is why I do what I do. It's not just to help everybody else, but it's to provide for my own family and, things like that. And then as part of that assessment, at the end of a 2.5 hour interview about him and his early life and development, the assessor like closed the book and she was like, the first thing she said to me, she's like, "And do you think that you have autism also?"
Oh my
And I just
goodness.
laughed and I was like, oh my goodness, the fact that that's the first thing that you said. And I was like, and the more I fill out all these forms and assessments for him, the more I'm like, boy, if I was doing this for myself, I think I'd probably, this is sounding a lot like me. And so sure enough, as soon as he got his diagnosis, they were like, we think you need to come in. But what I would like to say is, even in that, I'm not a massive believer in everything happens for a reason. I think things happen and you can find a reason for it. But when I was first trying to get him the help and the support that I knew he needed and get that diagnosis, it's actually only since 2013 that you can actually diagnose somebody with both autism and ADHD. Before that, you could only diagnose them with one. So in some ways, I think it's actually a blessing that we had to wait as long as we did, because we actually got a full diagnosis that previously wasn't possible. And with that has just allowed him to have a full scope of support. And if I had succeeded the first time around, I wouldn't have been aware of, it wouldn't have even been an option.
That's amazing. I didn't think about that. I didn't realize that about ADHD and autism. And how old was he when he was diagnosed?
He was 14, I believe.
Oh,
Yeah, 14.
okay.
And now my daughter has just been diagnosed as well. She's
Okay.
about to turn 14 in a couple of months. And apparently around age 6 and 7 and 13 to 14 are really when, those kind of traits are really showing themselves, and it's causing some struggles and it's very apparent. So we're
Okay.
all, right hitting that kind of typical thing that they see.
Okay, interesting. That's such interesting information. I had no clue, but I can
Mm.
understand what you mean. Like, had you gotten one diagnosis without the other, that it would have not given the full picture.
Mm.
So, pivoting back to hair
Mhm.
and getting the whole picture, and I just love you often speak about a holistic approach to hair care. Is that okay if we pivot back to hair? This was
Yeah,
so, I
please
guess
do.
the one other question that I want to ask about your son, does he have curly hair?
Yeah, both of my kids have curly
Both your
hair.
kids. Okay.
Yeah, he hates it. My daughter loves it.
Okay. And then is he wearing it long? Because a lot of, I mean,
No,
no.
because his hair texture
It's,
is very different. He's got the same hair as like my dad, and it's
okay.
really, I'm always hesitant to say the word Afro because we do not have any kind of black in our blood or in our heritage at
Hmm.
all. And I don't want to culturally appropriate that, but it is very thick and very curly and coily and tight, and it gets very hot. And
Hmm.
yeah, so for him, it's all about keeping it tight and keeping it short, because he desperately wanted to look like Harry Styles when he was younger. I was like, babe, you
Oh.
do not have the hair texture for that. Because if it grows long, it just grows out. It doesn't ever drop. But yeah, they
Yeah.
both have curly hair, and they both have very different curly hair to each other and to me. So
Okay.
when I get various different products to test or try out or whatever, I'm like, you're getting a full spectrum of curls and hair textures in this house,
Yeah.
because we all have different hair textures and curl patterns.
Right. Okay. That's amazing. Well, I love that. Okay. So back to hair and, just the idea, the holistic approach. What does it mean to you, like beyond product choices, just as far as connecting with your hair and connecting with a larger sense of well being?
Because the products are a tiny part of the story. They're a tiny part of what makes the results and everything that is tied up literally in your hair. If you think about it on so many levels, on a really deep spiritual level, our whole cells in our body regenerate and are completely new every 7 years. Unless we are shaving our hair off to the scalp every 7 years, it's the only part of our body that we are continuing to hold on to past that 7 year cycle of cell renewal. And so there's all sorts of things that we go through and that we hold on to, and that our hair is literally, it is in our hair. And then on not such a deep kind of spiritual cell renewal level, it's not just about your products. It's about your health. It's about your hormones. It's about the foods that you eat, the supplements that you take, the environment that you're in, the toxic load that your body in general is trying to deal with. And then it's
Hmm.
also about the techniques, because, I teach a masterclass called Transcend, and it's about nothing to do with products. It's everything
Mhm.
about the techniques that you use. And I love
Mhm.
that I can give clients a really quick, easy win using the products that they already have, because
Mm.
actually it's more about the techniques. And so when
Mhm.
you take into that whole approach and that whole holistic look, when I'm dealing with clients or looking at myself, the products is a part of it. It's also, of how often are you washing your hair? What is your diet like? At what cycle are you in your life of maiden, matriarch, motherhood, all of
Mhm.
those kind of things, because our hormones and our cycles have a huge effect on our hair. If it's just products, there's a whole swathe of things that we are ignoring that could be having a huge impact and do have a huge impact on your hair, from how curly it is to how shiny it is to how healthy it is to how long it is and how much hair shedding or hair growth that you're experiencing. And I always say to my clients, as lovely as it is to see you, and thank you so much for booking in with me. And I can't wait to be a part of your journey and to help you on that journey. In some ways, I never want to see you again. I want to give you all of the tools in such a holistic way that you don't have to feel like you have to keep coming back to me every time there's a little fluctuation and change, because I don't just tell you what to use, but I tell you why. And I tell you little things that
Mm.
might change that you will then need to tweak. And there's just so many things and elements to our well being as women, especially our hormones and our cycles, that play such a huge role in our hair.
That's so, so true. I love the holistic conversation. Can you share a moment or an experience that you had in guiding somebody that made some, energetic shifts or some notable impact on their healthy hair journey?
Yeah, I have. I had one client years ago where there was a lot of tears, and it was that whole thing of she'd lost her identity. She was known as, the
Mm.
girl with the curly hair. That's what she was known as in her village, in work, in her social circles. And she really felt like so many people feel that, like, they're just meant to be blonde. That is like
Mhm.
my spirit, my spirit animal is blonde. And she really wanted to do that, but it was ruining her hair and her curls. And so, in her pursuit of
Mm.
one thing that she identified with, she lost the other thing that she identified with. And so we really worked on together of like, where is that coming from? And how is that making you feel? And what is really what's important to you? And also,
Mm.
what are you willing to do to get it? And she's one of my greatest success stories. And, I reference her throughout masterclasses and, my signature hair transformation journey, which is called Crowning Glory. And that's the beautiful Caroline, because she went on that journey and we had several tears, and it was deep. That transformation was deep. And it's so typical of transformations with my clients. It starts off being about the hair, but it always ends up being about so much more. And when you put the two pieces together, the end transformation, it's not just their hair, it's their posture, it's their smile, it's their radiance, it's their presence, it's their confidence. The hair is just a small part of that transformation when you
Mm.
can see and recognize the full holistic transformation that has started on the inside and then made its way out. And then what happens is the little things that they're worried about, and they're like, oh my goodness, well, I want perfectly frizz-free defined waves and curls with absolutely no frizz, but I want all of the volume and all of the definition, and I don't like the crunchy crispy hard hold. And then by the end of it, those things that don't matter, because it's become about so much more, and
Right.
those things don't bother them as much. And one thing
Right.
I find so fascinating with that is when people talk about, like, oh my goodness, and all of the, you know, vision boards and the inspiration photos of like the curly girls of the 90s, of like Mariah Carey and Julia Roberts and, Sarah Jessica Parker, Minnie Driver, and Nicole Kidman. Their hair was not perfectly frizz free and defined with maximum hold and minimal crunch. The
Mm.
thing that people are recognizing and wanting for themselves is that confidence in themselves.
Mm.
And it didn't matter about the frizz or what parting they had or what their regime was, because there was an effortless confidence that came from a full, unapologetic acceptance of their natural hair texture and curl pattern.
Mm. I love that.
I don't
And
know if
that
that
makes
answers your
me
question, though.
no, no, that's beautiful. interesting to me. It makes me think of just all hair in general. Like I know that, I'm oftentimes around curl experts and I'm around stylists just in general, but there is some sort of energetic confidence that comes
Mm.
when you can really connect with your hair in that deeper, more powerful way. And I think what I've seen in my experience is there's something very powerful in acceptance, because there are certain things that we can change, but then there are
Mhm.
things that really aren't going to change. They're who we
Mm.
are. And so what we have to change is our perception of them.
But I think, and I don't know if you agree with this, but for me, the acceptance comes from authenticity, because
Absolutely.
I don't know, I certainly couldn't. So I'll speak for myself, and if it resonates with anybody else, it can and it will. But for me, I couldn't fully feel 100% authentic and like I was really living and standing and being in my authenticity if I was straightening my hair, because all it took was one rain shower, one misty day, one,
Mm,
humidity high day. And all of a sudden that really was exposing the real authentic me. And so I think that there is a freedom and a confidence when you know that you are fully standing in your authenticity from head to toe, including your hair, and you are not trying to smooth and tame and conform and constrict yourself into whatever standard and then be authentic everywhere else in your life. I don't think the full
mm,
alignment is until you are fully embracing and
mhm.
accepting and loving and confident and comfortable in your authentic hair texture.
I 100% agree with that. And then that makes me start to think I have more deep thoughts after I get off this podcast. I'm going to have to definitely think about it. But I'm even thinking about women that like color their hair.
Mhm.
And so when their roots are growing out, like how
Mhm.
much less confident they probably feel like when the gray is being exposed. And I'm not suggesting people shouldn't color their hair. It's just
Mhm.
an interest. I don't know. I just like these deep thoughts about like, the authenticity that you've brought up and, just the idea when people have the outgrowth coming in. I mean, I even know for myself with highlights, I like to have a few highlights. And then
Mm.
when my darker hair starts growing in, it's like, "Ooh, I think I want a few highlights," So
Yeah. And gray hair is something that I actually talk about a lot with my clients, and they almost come to me with this really kind of apologetic shame of like, "Oh my goodness, but
Mhm.
is it okay if I like, because I don't want to let my gray through." And I'm like, "You can do whatever you want. This is
Exactly.
this is not about you coming to me and feeling all kinds of shame and guilt about whatever way it is that you want to look. I'm here to help and empower and guide you. So you tell
Mhm.
me what your priorities are, and I'm going to tell you the healthiest way to do it so that you
Mhm.
can feel like your best self. And if it
Mhm.
comes to a time when you want to embrace your grays and you want to let them grow out, then sure, we can talk about that then as well. But if right now you don't feel like that, you don't have to. I prefer to call them wisdom highlights. I've got quite a few growing in, and I'm not doing anything about it.
Right.
I'm kind of looking forward to it. We'll
Mhm.
see how we go, but for me that was definitely modeled by my one of my older sisters. We all have dark hair like this is my
Mhm.
natural color.
Mhm.
I grew up with her being like, "I can't wait. I want full length gray hair the whole way." And I
Yes.
just always grew up with that coming from her who, I don't know if you have older sisters, but like you absolutely idolize them. And like all I ever wanted to be when I was younger, when people say, "What do you want to be when you're older?" I'm like, my sisters, any of
Oh,
them. Like, that's it. Like, that's as far as I can see.
that's
And
so
so I
sweet.
think that gray conversation is there's a lot of patriarchy tied up in that. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of guilt. And
Mhm.
I don't feel any type of way about whether you should or shouldn't be gray. It's about what do you want as a choice as a woman, and where is that choice coming from, and how can I empower and guide you through that, whatever that choice is.
Absolutely. Incredible. Well, this has been such an enlightening conversation, Gabriella. I really appreciate your time. It's always
Oh,
so
thank
much fun when we get
you.
together. There's so much more that we could talk about, but I just really want for people to make sure they can connect with you. So, can you tell me all the places where people can connect with you?
You can find me absolutely everywhere. Curl Maven. If you Google me, if you search me on any social media platforms, admittedly, I'm not on TikTok. I don't mess around with those young ones. They're a whole other breed that I can't keep
They
up with.
sure are.
But Instagram and my website, curlmaven.com, and Instagram is just at Curl Maven. I've got an X or a Twitter handle at Curl Maven. There's contact forms. There's an amazing and beautifully curated welcome flow set of emails if anybody wants to sign up to my emails, and I will bring them on a journey of empowerment and acceptance and transformation through my emails. And they can find me anywhere at Curl Maven. Just Google me and I will come up.
Amazing. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to share or anything else that you feel that my audience needs to hear today?
For me, I would just say, and I would encourage people, once you tap in and you realize, well, hold on, what is that authentic identity of mine? You know, what is my soul hair? What does that look like? And then I would tap in and go a little bit deeper and go, what do I inherently, innately, intuitively know about that? Most people that have hair texture and curl passion, they know I'm not meant to brush my hair when it's dry. That was the thing other people told me to do. Or they inherently know I'm not meant to use a body towel on my hair. And I think so much freedom and empowerment could come from not diving into social media and, you know, all the websites, including my own, and just tapping into your own wisdom, and whether it's been passed through generations of, wait, my grandmother had this hair and I always noticed she never did this or she always did that, and tapping in and just seeing what intuitively do you know to stay away from or do you know to do. So many of my clients, when I give them those really simple techniques and tips, so many of them will say, oh my goodness, I used to do that. Or I knew that I was supposed to do that, but someone else said something else. And so I ignored my own kind of intuitive wisdom and thought that they knew better. And I'm like, you will always know your own hair better than anyone else. The trick is you need to tune out the algorithms and you need to tune into your own intuition.
I love that. That just so aligns with inner sense and trusting your inner sense. And you said that so eloquently. And I just appreciate you so much. Thank you for all your wisdom and for your care and concern for your family and for others. And it was such a joy talking with you today.
You too. It was an absolute honor and pleasure. And I'm so glad that I was able to do this and have such an incredible opportunity to talk to you and connect. I think everybody will tell now we could keep going on and on and on.
We could, yes, for sure. More to come. Maybe our next podcast will be on just gray hair. Who knows?
Yes. Well, thank you so much.
All right, Gabriella. Really enjoy your day. Thank you so much.
Too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode, dear friends. I would be thrilled to hear which part resonated with you the most. Your reflections on today's topic and how it sparked action in your life mean a lot to me. Feel free to share your thoughts at podcasts@innersensebeauty.com or leave a review. I look forward to you coming back next week to explore another exciting topic together. If you'd like to dive deeper, be sure to check out the show notes for some valuable links. Until we meet again, take good care of yourself. Know that you are surrounded by love and always trust your inner sense. Wishing you all the best, friends.